Welcome to the Embracing Neurodiversity podcast, where I share my journey of embracing the experience of my amazing son who is on the spectrum. I am Ivory, a mother, educator, and personal growth enthusiast. My goal is to offer insight and stories that may inspire you on your own parenting journey. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Embracing Neurodiversity podcast, where I like to take a heart centered approach and journey through the ups and downs and everything in between of parenting neurodiverse children. I am, of course, your host, Ivory, and I am really excited today because I usually incorporate and embed other books into the podcast episode. Like I like to quote other authors who write books in alignment to personal growth and development, self-reflection and healing. You all know I was on my Brianna Weiss bandwagon for a while with a couple of her books. And then I was also recapping The Conscious Parenting by Dr. Shafali. So, yeah, I've been really incorporating other people's books and content over the past year in the podcast. But I decided to take a leap and start to incorporate my own book that I wrote for parents of neurodiverse children by a parent of neurodiverse children. So, whether you're just starting to explore your child's neurodiversity or you've been walking this path for years, this is the space for you. And in today's episode, I want to explore what it means. What does discovery mean for parents of neurodiverse children? We'll explore how the discovery phase marks the beginning of this transformative journey, what it means emotionally, practically, and even spiritually, right? And so I'll share some of the information that is in my Transformative Parent Playbook and some personal anecdotes to help ground this discussion in real experiences. So let's dive in. What is the discovery phase? The discovery phase is where it all begins, really. It's that moment of realization when you first learn that your child's development may be different from what you expected. It might be when a professional provides a diagnosis, or it could be a gradual understanding that something isn't aligning with a typical, and I use that in quotations, development milestone. In my book, Transformative Parenting Playbook, I describe this as a time filled with a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, fear, relief, hope, all mixed together. You'll find that both on this podcast and in my book, I don't shy away from calling out the raw and real emotions because I think that is necessary on this journey. One of the quotes from the playbook that really sets the tone for this phase is that the journey of parenting a neurodiverse child begins with the phase of discovery, a time when you first come to understand and identify your child's unique characteristics and needs. It's not just about recognizing a diagnosis, it's about learning who your child truly is. So for me, the discovery phase started when my son, you all know his name is Khalil, received his autism diagnosis. I remember sitting on the floor in the doctor's office, surrounded by toys, and hearing the words that changed everything. Based on my assessment, Khalil has autism. I remember a wave of sadness and relief, honestly, at once. Sadness because I didn't fully understand what it meant for his future, but relief because I finally had an explanation for the unique ways that he experiences the world. And so I tell the story in detail in the book. So when you get a chance, purchase it. It's on Amazon. It's also on my website, and I go more into depth as it relates to that. But let's talk about the emotions that come with the discovery phase. This phase is often accompanied with grief. Grief is a real emotion that should be honored, not because you're not grieving because there's anything wrong with your child, right? Like you'll find on this podcast and in the book, I don't lean into the deficits or perceived deficits of our children. So the grief doesn't necessarily come from believing that there's anything wrong, but because you're letting go of the expectations you may have had unconsciously held on to. In my playbook, I share this reflection. I had to let go of the idea of the type of child I thought I wanted and embrace the child that I had. Letting go is hard, and it's okay to feel that difficulty. When I first heard the diagnosis, I cried. I cried because I was scared. Would people treat my son differently? Was the question that kept coming to mind. Would he be accepted by others? But as I continued to reflect, I realized that these fears were rooted in my own lack of understanding. And so the more I learned, the more I saw the beauty in who my son is. And I had to shift my focus from fear of what his differences might mean to embracing his strengths. One of the biggest emotional hurdles during the discovery is allowing yourself to feel everything, even the uncomfortable emotions. And this is where journaling became my lifeline. I remember sitting down one evening writing about how unfair it felt that Khalil would have to navigate a world that didn't always understand him. But that journaling session led to a shift in my thinking. Instead of focusing on the barriers, I started thinking about how I could become his advocate and his guide. Discovery isn't just about emotional reactions, it's about shifting your mindset and expanding your understanding. One of the most transformative lessons I learned during the discovery phase was the importance of focusing on strengths. I know I sound like a broken record, but it really, truly is the key. In the playbook, I write that your child's differences are not limitations, they are the very things that make them unique and beautiful. This realization didn't come overnight. I want to be very clear about that. And oftentimes, I still have to step back and remind myself to focus on the strengths. In the beginning, I was so focused on what milestones we were missing that I couldn't see the incredible qualities my son already had. But as I began to shift my perspective, I noticed his sense of humor, his curiosity, his critical thinking skills. These were the things that didn't show up on a developmental chart that medical research creates or designs, but they were signs of his brilliance. Parents in the discovery phase can benefit from adopting a strength based approach. Instead of asking, why can't my child do this? Try asking, what is my child already good at? And how can I nurture that? This shift in mindset can be liberating. Also, as you navigate the discovery phase, one of the most important things you can do is seek support, both for your child and yourself. In my own journey, I learned that the sooner you connect with resources, the better, right? Speech therapists, occupational therapists, and support groups can make a world of difference. They do become your community, they become a part of your village if you choose the right people. But just as important is seeking support for yourself. I emphasize this in the playbook that while a parenting guide can be helpful, don't hesitate to seek support from a coach, a therapist, and or a support group. People who understand your lived experience can shepherd you through this journey, and I cannot stress that enough. You don't have to do this alone. And locally, here in Kansas City, myself and another autism mom, we have become business partners and begin to host local events for parents and their children so that there is a sense of community and safety and inclusion, because we also know that oftentimes when we bring our children to public spaces, we worry about judgment, we worry about the unexpected, which comes with stress and anxiety. And so the events that we host eliminate that for parents, and that is a way that we continue to shepherd parents along the way on this journey. For me, connecting with other parents who were also raising neurodiverse children was a complete game changer, because you don't have to explain the details or the intricacies, they just understand, right? Also, hearing their stories made me feel less isolated, and their advice often provided me with some actionable steps whenever I felt stuck. There were parents who literally gave me the referrals and gave gave me access to benefits that were available to support my child that I wasn't aware of. So community is key. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to find a community that resonates with your journey. And so, lastly, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought: the discovery phase is not the end, it's truly the beginning of something beautiful. Yes, it's filled with emotions, uncertainties, and challenges, but it's also where you start to truly understand and embrace your child. If you're in this phase right now, give yourself grace and compassion. Let yourself feel. Lean into the uncomfortable moments. Learn as much as you can. There is no silly question. You're not expected to have the answers. You only get the answer when you ask the question, and be committed to the growth journey. And remember, you don't have to have all the answers today. There are things I'm still learning and figuring out. So, what matters most is showing up, learning, and advocating for your child. As always, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Embracing Neurodiversity podcast. If you found this episode to be helpful, please share it with another parent who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember that you're not alone on this journey. Take care of yourself. Bye.